All right, let's get into it. Let's do the inaugural first episode of this sort of variety, opinionated review bullshit sort of thing. And I guess for the first episode, I really wanted to talk about. I can't. Firstly, I'm doing a podcast. For those of you who know me or don't know me, it's a pretty big deal. Uh, because I have a lot of opinions about stuff, as does everyone. But mine are better because I'm cool. So, um, I'm really just doing this. I've never really done anything like this before. I used to stream a lot, but it's very interactive when you're streaming. You sort of have something to fall back on. Right now, I'm actually just sitting in a room. I got like a blanket draped over me, like I'm Dracula. It just feels weird, though. Kind of just talking to the open air. I know you're listening, but it's crazy strange. But anyway, I wanted to talk about the first episode of this. My friend gave me the idea. I wanted to talk about probably my favorite game of all time. It's something that I think everybody should go and play. Resident Evil 4. And I know that's pretty generic for that to be somebody's favorite game. But I really want to get into why it's my favorite game and why you should care about it and why it should be your favorite game as well. Yeah, I'm telling you how to live your life. I think episode one's a good episode to get that out of the way. And yeah, so Resident Evil, everybody knows about it. If you don't, I'm not talking about the movies that are god awful. I'm really talking about the gaming series. And for a long time, my favorite Resident Evil game was Resident Evil 2. I can like beat it with my eyes closed to this day. I can just blaze through that game, get everything, know all the secrets. And that's just because I spent a lot of time as a kid playing it. I mean, it came out in like 98, 99. And I was like 10 years old. So, yeah, what do you do as a kid? You play video games, read books. I guess smart kids study and become investment brokers, but I'm not one of them. So, I play video games and read books. So, Resident Evil 4, it came out to a bit of contention in the Resident Evil community. One of my closest friends ever, Mike, he does not like Resident Evil 4 because it's not Resident Evil to him and to a lot of people. It took you out of the sort of tank controls. It introduced a new way to control your character. It gave you new agency as a player of what you could do at all times. It took away the claustrophobic nature of all the games. Even with like 2, it starts you in a city and there's streets and you can run and back alleys. You really were trapped by that camera. It controlled everything you saw and could see at any given time, which is scary. You know, found footage films do that all the time, but it also, just like in found footage films, is really really annoying because you think to yourself the entire time, well, I would look over here or I would look over there. 4 removed that and gave you a camera, semi-functioning, semi-fully controlled, not all the way fully controlled. It is always behind Leon, but you can zip to the left and right. You can turn him around, which by extension turns the camera around, so you have a bit of control of what you as a player want to look at and should look at. And that really, really changed not just Resident Evil, but like all video games. Because before that, it had been done before, I think. I can't remember the exact game. I didn't do any research for this. I'm just talking from like memory. But not the way Resident Evil 4 did it. And it paved the way for like Dead Space and all sorts of shit to follow. And that speaks to his legacy that other great games exist because it exists. So that's the first thing about Resident Evil 4 that's really, really amazing. Because up until that point in the gaming series, as I was saying, you couldn't look where you wanted to look. You saw what the camera presented you at that time. Like, Resident Evil is very much a puzzle game, and a puzzle is it gives you all the information and you have to decide how to solve it. Resident Evil's camera in every scene gave you all the information of the room you were in that it could show you. So if you walk into a room and it would just show like the back of you and like a painting there, that's all you need to see. But if you progress a few screens into that room, it's like every step you take changes what the camera can see because you're seeing what the character sees as they see it. Ford changed that by giving the camera right behind you, meaning you would always be seeing what Leon saw as he saw it, and you could, to some degree, control what he's looking at, which was very important to Ford's gameplay because, yeah, that entire game is crazy frantic in comparison to the old ones. The old ones are very subdued, and they were very methodical. There wasn't, unless you were speed running it, you never really ran too much unless you were running from danger. A lot of walking, a lot of checking, clicking the X button constantly on like sides of walls or chairs or something that looked out of place in a frame. There was a lot of foreshadowing in the old games where it's like a painted still, but then something's glowing like an old Disney movie. Like, oh, that's a thing they're going to interact with. And there was a lot of that in the old games. Not just 2, which is my favorite, but 1, 2, 3. I think even like Survivor, which was like their first attempt at like a rail shooter. They had some foreshadowing there for what you could shoot and couldn't. Yeah, Survivor was terrible. But that goes to show the importance of camera in Resident Evil and why 4 already, just with the way it presented the world to you and how you could interact with it, changed Resident Evil. And I think much for the better. I mean, of course, 5 came out with the same scheme, and people like 5. The story missed a lot of beats. And 6, I mean, say what you will about 6, I liked it only because I feel like a game always should be moving forward. And 6 gave you melee for the first time. I felt like a real person because in none of the games, even with 4, there's cutscene melee. You got the knife, and all the other ones you got the knife. But in none of the games did I really feel like if there was a zombie in a room, like, and it was this touching your face, breathing on you, you wouldn't stop and aim and shoot it. You would kick it the fuck off you or bat it away with your hand and then shoot it. And 6 gave that to you, so I always felt pretty good about 6 because of that. If just that small change, and I'm not saying the game's a masterpiece because you can kick and run and jump and kick, but I'm saying it deserves some credit for, again, trying to move the series forward. And then with 7, it was just like, okay, well, that's all done. Let's try this new thing that everyone's doing, which is walking simulator. And 7 is, it's a walking simulator, but with guns and with scary things. Most walking simulators like Soma, you really can just, or Outlast, you run or hide. And that works to startling effect because if you know you can't fight back, it's terrifying. So the thing that 7 did was, they made it run or hide, but they gave you weapons like Resident Evil have, or herbs so you could heal if you took damage. The thing that they kept from the other walking simulators is most of the enemies you encounter are like these immortal, unkillable. Like the first guy, the chief of the household or whatever, you blow his brains out like when you first fight him. He's just still coming at you. He's on fire coming at you. A truck crushes him. He gets impaled to the head, and he's just coming at you. Meaning, while you're fighting and you get like this sense of, oh yeah, I can fight him off with a gun, you really still have to run or hide for like most of the game, and that stayed throughout all of them. I didn't even beat the game yet, honestly, but for the parts that I played, that really stayed. So I'm getting off topic there. Well, I'm staying on topic, but I'm off topic in regards to 4. So we're talking about the camera, and we're talking about how important it is to see what you're doing in 4, because unlike the other ones, they got rid of the fixed camera. They gave you the free camera. So to accommodate the free camera, they had to give you free mobility. So now you move how you should move. You move forward, you go forward. You don't have to stop to turn left or right when you're moving. There isn't this sort of janky looking animation that got you hit a lot of the times if you're trying to make a quick cut left or right when running in the old games. And that blew my mind when I first played it. It came out 2004, I think. And the last game in the series was 3 at that time. And it was nothing like anyone had ever seen. And I forgot the director's name. He recently directed Evil Within 1 and 2. I don't think Shinji Mikami, there it is. I don't think he was in charge of 2. I think he was just like a producer. I don't remember. But yeah, then like the Evil Within, like thanks to 4, like the Evil Within exists. Anyway, we're moving on from the camera because it's super important, but we're going to talk about the gameplay. I feel like I rambled about the camera too long. The gameplay is not, it's your standard Resident Evil fare. You see a zombie, you shoot the zombie. There's chests where you can put items. There's save ribbons and save points. But unlike in the old game, saves were unlimited. See, in the old game, they made you manage how you saved your progress. Like, did you want to save after almost dying? Did you want to save after you beat the boss? Well, you better have those ribbons, because if you don't have them, you're not saving the game. And if you die, you're going back to your last save point, which may have been hours prior. So it really, see, fear is defined as like what you may lose. And Resident Evil presented you with a lot to lose at all times. Either be it the unseen enemy you can't see or you can hear shambling about off screen, or getting hunted down by like a Mr. X, Mr. T green jacket guy, and you didn't save for an hour, and you're on caution, and he's faster than you. So that's very scary. 4 took a different approach to fear. 4 was really the first one that I guess can be categorized as action horror. It wasn't scary at all. You had too much control, and I think that's where the purist of this series really, really, really hated it, because it took away that, oh, I might die and have to start from when I saved. If you died in 4, yeah, you had to start from where you last saved, but the saving was different. You could save anytime you wanted. For the most part, it saved after every chapter. After you beat a chapter, it saved. The typewriters were still in the game, but you didn't need ribbons when you encountered one just in the field. You could save right then and there. And yeah, if you die, you just went back to your last typewriter save, which didn't have ribbons. So you have infinite lives at this point. You have infinite saves. The gun they introduced. So in the old game, if you found a gun, the gun had a set strength. Like you start the game with, I think, like a Beretta in 2 and a knife, and you work your way to you get the shotgun, which is obviously much stronger. You can blow the zombies' heads off up close, and you get an electric gun if you're Leon. I think Claire gets a triple barrel shotgun. Then you get the Magnum, which is a staple of the Resident Evil series, Barry's Magnum, and that's a one-hit kill for most enemies and most bosses, like depending on how you do it. But in 4, they introduced a gun system where you still have all those basic guns: the Magnum, the pistol, the shotgun, new knives, some sniper rifles, assault rifles were introduced. But what they did was they made it so these guns start at a base level, and through playing, you earn gold, and you can level these guns up. So one gun might start, oh, this gun does this amount of damage, but through playing the game, you level it up, and now it can pierce through 2 enemies at once, or now it can decapitate an enemy in one headshot instead of several. And a lot of the Resident Evil purists didn't like that either, because a lot of people just don't like gun sort of upgrades in games, and I don't blame them, because I feel like if I go buy a gun right now, the only real upgrades I can buy for it are like a laser sight, but that's just to help my eyesight, or like a flashlight attachment. None of that makes the gun's caliber any different. Like if I buy a pistol, it's the caliber. But in Resident Evil 4, it changed. The upgrade system changed the way it gave money a value, because in the old games there was no money, because you were just trying to survive. But in this one, there's like an economy. There's a trader. He's very famous. He does a "what are you buying?" I'm not a very good at impression, so I'm not going to. But he's in every part of the game pretty much. Every new area, he's selling a new item. When you clear certain milestones in the game, he'll give you items for free. And for that, they needed a monetary system, so they introduced gold or pestas that you unlock by killing enemies. Just shoot them dead. You find it in bird nests, you find it in chests, in barrels that you break open, and you spend that to unlock stronger armaments for yourself to progress through the game easier. It really is an expansive experience, one that I have and multiple times started from scratch, from 0, and played it straight through, did everything, beat the Mercenaries mode. It introduced the Mercenaries mode, which is it didn't introduce it. It reused the Mercenaries mode from like 2 and 3, but it gave it obviously a time. It's like a time attack. And beating the Mercenaries mode in this one with with an S rank for all the characters unlocks the Magnum, the instant kill Magnum from the old games, hand cannon they call it. And it's probably like the hardest thing in video games for me. It took me forever to do it the first time, and then I lost my GameCube memory card got corrupted, and I had to do it all over again. And I did. That's how much I love the game, that I can just put it on anytime, you know, and play it. I was going to play it to get like myself hyped up for this first thing, but I didn't, and I'm probably regretting that because I could like play off of it a little more. Right now I'm playing like this Metroidvania Axiom Verge. Shit is fucking bonkers. So, but back to Resident Evil 4. The combat was, since now it's behind your shoulder, the camera's always behind your shoulder, so when you raise your gun, you're looking down his eyesight, down his gun, and you can see the full screen, and you can see exactly where you're pointing your gun because all the guns are equipped with sight. And that sight allows you to shoot and aim at body parts, which can now be dismembered with more greater ease than they could in the old games. In the old games, you could blow a zombie's head clean off or stomp it off if you want to grab you. Now you can shoot like legs and parts like that off, and they'll crawl, and you can shoot their heads off, you can blow their arms off. Certain enemies in the game, you can blow every part of them apart. They're called the Regenerators. They're the scariest enemy in the game because they're very hard to kill. They have these little parasites on them that are invisible. You have to buy a thermal scope, which is another thing just introduced to the game. You could, if you buy a thermal scope and zoom at them through it, you see their weak points lit up, and you have to shoot those weak points either with the thermal scope or memorize where they are and shoot them with a strong handgun or a machine gun. And once you destroy their weak points, they just explode. And it's fast. Like in the old games, the zombies were zombies. They walked really slow. Most people have no hit runs where you can just run through the whole fucking game not touching a single zombie. Because they set it on their own set patterns and they move slow as hell. So if you memorize it, you got it. And this one, the enemies see you, they shamble, but they're not zombies. So they run at you, they throw weapons at you from far like sickles or axes. They gang up on you. They always try to get into your flank. They're smarter. The AI was better when 4 came out. So it allowed them to do so much more with combat. So but every combat experience is like a unique experience depending on the weapons you have and what you have in your inventory at the time. I mean, I'm sure there's tons of stories of how you fought here and fought there, or you had to use the knife in this situation. Like Resident Evil 1, the remake for GameCube, introduced like defensive items. If you get grabbed up close, there's like a grenade you can put into the zombie's mouth or a knife you can stab into their head to make them break free of you. In this one, if you're grabbed, you wiggle the left analog stick and Leon will push them down or kick them, sometimes destroying their head in the process. And that shit is amazing because it works for every enemy in the game. The bosses, the regular enemies, and the way they do it is getting grabbed takes a portion of your health. And if depending on where your health is, every enemy has the capability of instant killing you. Even the villagers, they can instant kill you if they grab you at low health. I think the villagers just slam you to the ground, but there's more intricate ones like the Regenerators I talked about. They have a variant called the Iron Maiden with spikes protruding from their body. If they grab you at low health, they just impale you completely through. And there's an enemy in the game called U2, or is it Vertigo? He's one of the Salazar's right-hand men. He hunts you through the sewers. He can instant kill you. I think all the bosses can instant kill you. And that's another thing from the old games that they brought back was the instant kill animations, because the alligator can just eat you whole in two. And they brought them back in stellar fashion. And they just put so much work into 4. And I mean, we were talking about the combat. I mean, there's so many ways you can fight. And most of it is just point and shoot because it's a point and shoot game. But I mean, with all the guns, there's a mine launcher. You can set traps with mines. There's like the Chicago typewriter, which is a special gun you get for beating the game. It's a Thompson machine gun, or a Tommy gun, as they're called. It has unlimited ammo and it never has to be reloaded, making each combat scenario hilariously easy. But you earn it for beating the game. And then there's like professional mode, like in all the old games, where enemies are stronger, you get less bullets. Narrative. We're gonna the narrative of Resident Evil 4. It picks up sometime after 3, a couple of years. Umbrella at this point has fallen. Umbrella, for all of the veterans of the series, have been the main bad guys. So Resident Evil 4 really broke every convention. Because not only did they do away with the mainstay, the zombies, they got rid of the big bad corporation. Umbrella. Umbrella's gone. And now, the only reason you're even doing anything is because Leon, from number 2, has, through things explained in the later games, plot heavy shit, some of it's random, is in the employ of the President of the United States. He's like a personal friend and bodyguard to this man. The President's daughter goes missing. She's kidnapped by an extremist cult called the Los Illuminados. Not the Los Illuminados, Los Illuminados. And they are into bioengineering weapons, which really kicks off the plot of BOWs later in 5 and 6. 4 really started it all. I think the Los Illuminados were the first real extremist group. Like, we're going to use these monsters and engineer them, and we're going to make them weapons of war. And Leon is dispatched to some fucking European island somewhere to save the President's daughter. That's the premise of the game. That's the narrative. And through it, you know, you're introduced to the bad guys. You're introduced to the big bad. Like, immediately, Leon is infected by Las Plagas, which is the new T-virus in this game. And it's like you spend the whole game, half the game, just watching him undergo changes that, you know, but unlike the zombie virus, it can be reversed, which you do, obviously. And yeah, it just really turned everything on its head. It just took you it took you away from, because 1, 2, and 3, 1 was a dark and grimy mansion. It was dingy and shitty. And who gives a shit? It's a fucking house. Why the fuck? Who set those traps up? How did anyone get around the house? You can play with Jill or with Chris, but with Chris you gotta like fucking put a shotgun on a wall or something, or a trap. How did Jill get in that room? Like, what the fuck? Anyway, 2 was in a city in the beginning, and in the beginning you run through a cityscape, but the core of the game takes place inside of a police station. 3 had a lot more locales, but it's still kind of confined to, you got the police station setting, the outside setting, there's a trolley setting. Each time there's a cutscene that moves you to a new setting, like there's a garden setting, but you're just in those settings. 4 took you out of all that, and also it was nighttime in all of those games, like all of them, it was nighttime. 4 opened broad day. You're in a car with 2 cops, locals, who I guess Liam was riding with, and they're just shooting the shit in the car, talking about how he's a Yankee and all this extra shit, and making fun of him very openly. And Leon's like, whatever, I'm fucking Leon. And it's broad day. The first enemy you encounter is a man, I guess, roasting a fire. Leon's like, hey, have you seen this girl in a picture? And the guy turns around like, oh, something Spanish, and comes at you with a fucking axe. And you shoot him dead in his own house. That's unheard of for Resident Evil. Resident Evil is, most of your enemies, almost all of them, are just fucking monsters in every sense of the word. There's the zombie monsters, but then there's like lizard hybrid dudes that slash your head off. There's fucking whole giant alligators and shit, but they're fucking creatures. In this one, it was like, I just shot a man dead. It really, really changed what everyone perceived to be Resident Evil at the time. And through that, it opened up a lot of opportunities. Like, we knew Wesker was a badass in 1. He like spin kicks Chris, and he orchestrated this whole shit in 1. But you didn't really get to see how much of a badass he was until 5, where it's like, oh shit, he can teleport. He knows Kung Fu. He's fucking Neo from the Matrix, just with blonde hair, you know, like. But that was all made possible with all the changes that 4 made to the game. Like, just as 4 started on an island in broad day, 5, you're in fucking Mother Africa, you know? And most of the game is daytime. It's amazing what 4 really allowed the series to become. They got away from all that in 7. As I said, 7 is a bit of a walking simulator. But it tried to get back to horror. And right now, what's scary is games where you don't have a lot of control over the horror, like Outlast, where you just gotta haul ass. When you hide, there's some narrative, you hide, enemies are gonna see you, get the fuck out of there. Resident Evil 7, you walk around, there's narrative, you shoot the enemies that can be killed, but the bosses for the most part can't. You just fight them, you survive, and then there's more narrative, and so on and so forth. Before really, every instance, there's a guy with a chainsaw, he can take your head clean off. You know, he drops more pestas to upgrade yourself. And the items in the game change your appearance. Like 2 had that, and 3 with the special costumes, but In 4, you start in a jacket, and a cutscene happens where you lose your jacket, and you play the rest of the game without your fucking jacket. You never get it back. It was a nice Gucci, like, mink fucking jacket. You never, ever get it back. There's a scene where you can buy a ballistic vest from the trader, and when you come out of the menu, you're fucking wearing the bulletproof vest you just purchased. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal, man. And you really feel for the characters like Leon. You feel his struggle, because it's like, fuck. Like, before, I'm fighting monsters, but now I'm fighting thinking people who seek to upend me at every turn. There's mini bosses, sub bosses. The puzzles are still there. They are not hard because the focus was on the action and all this cool new shit. So a lot of people were upset about that, as well as the puzzles sort of took a back seat in 4 and 5 and 6. And I don't think 6 has any puzzles. It's just, alright, let's kick some fucking ass, fucking zombies and shit, let's do it. Yeah, so 4 really upended all of Resident Evil's conventions, from the dark and grimy atmosphere to the camera locking when you can see and hear at any given point, to the guns, to your inventory. It in Resident Evil, picking a character was a big part, because Chris, while he had a bigger inventory, he didn't get the grenade launcher and shit like that, or he didn't get the lighter, or Jill got the lockpick. Picking a character even was a metagame in the old Resident Evils. In 4, you can just fucking buy bigger inventory slots. Like, in 4, it's a briefcase, and the inventory slot is an open briefcase, and it's small. But later, the trader, he's selling big ass briefcases, and you can just buy a huge one and fit all sorts of shit, from chicken eggs to fish to fucking a sniper or a magnum or whatever you want, and you can rotate the items so they fit better. You can sort of Tetris your inventory. It just was fucking, I mean, really, it's most of the stuff looking back at it is like, this shit is a no-brainer. But I guess back in the 90s, it was really, we're just trying to get the brand up there. And it spawned movies, animated movies. The live-action ones, we don't talk about those. They are really, really bad. It spawned animated movies. It's countless spin-offs on the 3DS that have been ported since. I mean, but if you play them, like if you play Resident Evil Revelations, it's pretty much just 4. Like, I feel like all the new ones took that blueprint and was like, this shit fucking works. Let's use it again and again. And then, of course, you get Fatigue, and 7 sort of rebooted it with, again, the first-person aspect. I haven't beat 7 yet. I really want to. It's just boring. Like, I'm a big fan of 4, and I'm a big fan of 5 and 6. And 7 is like, okay, it's scary again. Absolutely. Jump scares are always scary, but if you take away the jump scares, if you take away the atmosphere of it's really quiet because you're just sort of walking around an abandoned house, and if you look at it as a game, you really are just walking around and sometimes shooting, and there's some puzzles. And I guess the same could be said for 4, but it just has more flair, Maybe I'm trying to compare 2 different genres. 7 is very subdued. It's very much like an indie horror film that I feel like a couple of college kids put together, and they did a hell of a job, because it is an amazing game. Not taking anything from it, but I feel like it doesn't do anything new like 4 did. 4 really did something new. It got rid of... It kind of did what Aliens 3 did, where like we had these lovable characters established over 2 movies, and like it kills them immediately. Like fucking the girl Newt is dead right in the beginning of 3. The guy with the soldier is dead, but then in the Colonial Marines he's not dead. I'm not even sure if that's still canon. Ripley dies at the end of it. It's like, fuck. 3, and it's in 3, just like with 4, I feel like it's super divisive among the most loyal of fans, because they're like, this isn't a fucking alien movie, just like they say 4 isn't Resident Evil. And they might have a point, because it really changed everything that Resident Evil was about. It wasn't this slow, methodical walking around game anymore, what they tried to bring it back to with 7. Just in the first person. I feel like they're going to do that. Should have just put it back in the regular person like they did with the old games. But whatever. It really was like, fuck Umbrella, fuck zombies, fuck nighttime bullshit. Here we got these islands. We got broad day. We got dudes in night armor. We got the president's daughter, who you play with. There's a whole section where you play as Ashley Graham. the president's daughter. And it's fucking terrifying because she doesn't have any guns. She solves puzzles in her section and avoids enemies. And it's refreshing as hell when you get to be Leon again and you're like, finally, I get to shoot some fucking heads off. It really, the pacing of 4, the theming, the pacing, everything about it was never seen before in Resident Evil. Well, and I know people will say, well, what about in 2? You play as Sherry. You do. And she doesn't have any guns. And it's just like with that one, when you make it back to Leon, it's like amazing. Like, oh my God, thank God. I'm back to this character who I can defend myself with. But that's just someone you can't defend yourself with. And that's cool that they revisited it just on a grander scale. Because the Ashley section is just that. It's just a section. Sherry you play with a couple of times throughout 2. But Ashley's just one time. And she has to pick up lanterns to throw them at the enemies to burn them, but there's limited lanterns. And that's fucking awesome. I mean, once you meet back up with her, I know, like, it gave me, what it did for me was, I don't know if anybody's played Eco. Yeah, the people who did Shadow of the Colossus, that was their first game, Eco. And the entire game is a babysit game. You babysit Yona, I can't remember her name. She's like all white, she's pale. You babysit her the whole game. And 4 is that. Like, once you get Ashley, for the exception of, like, 2 parts where you don't have her, you babysit her. You can tell her to hide in dumpsters or in a fucking barrel while you shoot and mow down everything, and you can call her to you. That shit is awesome. That shit is cool. I mean, because she points out things like, Leon, look up there. You know, she's not just worthless. It's not just a body. And it really makes you feel like Leon, because when you go down a ladder, if it's too high for her, she'll jump and Leon will catch her. If she gets carried off, you got to shoot the enemy before she's carried off screen or it's game over. It adds like a lot of tension because you're not just defending yourself as like this super badass action hero Leon. You're defending the president's daughter. And that's like the premise of the game is set right in the beginning. Leon, go find my daughter. You do. And once you do, you spend the rest of the game like, all right, I got to get you home to your father. And like everything in the game that happens is Leon trying to do just that. There's like no deterrent from that. Ada makes a reappearance. He thought she was dead from 2. It's just a whole bunch of shit. Is fucking Krauser, this guy, apparently in his FBI days or whatever the fuck he was, special ops, who he thought died in a helicopter crash, makes an appearance, but he's a villain. And it's super impactful for Leon. And we're like, who the fuck is this guy? He's just some guy with a knife and a red beret. But later on, there's a Wii U game that shows Leon and Krauser's partnership, shows them in like Bolivia or whatever, fucking fighting BOWs. So it's like, wow, this shit is awesome. And it really, as I said, I can't be overstated enough. It really took Resident Evil, everything that made it, from the puzzles to the slow action to the big bad corporation, and it threw it out the window. And it was like, no, it's not just one big bad corporation. Everyone's scumbags. Everyone wants this power for themselves. Everyone wants to weaponize it. Weapons are the future. You know, shit doesn't just happen at night in a fucking mansion or police station. Is happening outside on the streets. Giant monsters are rampaging through Africa, or literally giant monsters. You know, this shit, it changed everything, and I feel it deserves I feel like it deserves an endless amount of praise for that. And I think that's why it's circling back to the opening, that's why it's my favorite game of all time, because it did something that a lot of people were scared to do today. It took conventions that are accepted. It took conventions that are beloved by many and said, fuck this, and just did its own thing and did it so well. It inspired other games. We wouldn't have Dead Space without it. I love Dead Space. We wouldn't have The Evil Within. I love The Evil Within. That shit is Resident Evil 4 on crack. It's so good. So I've gone on about it, but I'll touch on it in another episode. But I just really wanted to start to give you an idea of what this podcast. Oh, I had a slight audio hiccup there. I'm editing myself back in. I just wanted to give you an idea of what my podcast will truly be about and say thanks for listening. All right, I'll catch you guys next episode. All right, see ya.